Asia McClain says she was with Adnan Syed in the library when the prosecution says he was murdering Hae Min Lee. 15 years later, Sarah Koenig interviewed her for the record-shattering podcast Serial. And since then, Asia McClain has been living under the microscope.
Since you came out with this recollection, you've had some critics.
Yes.
These two sisters who went to the same high school, and they're now state witnesses.
Yes.
And they are basically calling you a liar. I mean, no way to sanitize it. They're saying you confessed to them at the time that you were going to make up a lie that Adnan didn't murder Hae, and this is part of their quote to you. They're saying that the person, one of the sisters writing, I think it's sad he may actually be set free because of you and this fabricated story.
All I can say is that they're lying.
So, just to be clear, you didn't tell the sisters at the time that you were going to make up a lie to help Adnan in his case?
No, I didn't. And it's complete nonsense because at the time, there were so many unknown factors. I could have had no knowledge of what the state was going to argue the time of death was, when the murder took place. None of that was information that was privy to any of us. So for that to be true, that would have meant that I would have known the state's argument before they presented the argument in court. It just makes no sense at all.
In my opinion, this has always been one of the city's great miscarriages of justice, and the hope would be that that injustice would be corrected.
Earlier this year, Adnan's new defense team would get their chance to try and correct it. At a post-conviction hearing, they presented evidence of ineffective assistance of counsel. Questionable cell phone data which linked Adnan to where Hae Min Lee was buried. Remember, the cornerstone of the prosecution's case was that cell phone data, which they say would now seem less reliable after a bombshell. A fax cover sheet that Adnan's first defense attorney never received, stating, quote, "Any incoming calls will not be considered reliable information for location."
There was a fax cover sheet that was found that the prosecution never disclosed that literally says on there from AT&T that location cannot be determined on calls. And they did not disclose that fax cover sheet.
And of course, Asia McClain's alibi testimony.
You did testify at his post-conviction hearing. What was that like?
It was very nerve-wracking because there were a lot of eyes on me. And then, you know, the idea of seeing Adnan after all those years was something that was uncomfortable. And I knew that there were going to be family members there of Hae. So the whole experience was just very heavy to me.
What did the prosecutors come at you with?
I was accused of being a part of a conspiracy to draft letters, to falsify an alibi.
And when you left the courtroom to go back home, did you think to yourself, why'd I even get involved? It wasn't worth it.
No. When I left the courtroom, I was relieved. I felt like there was a huge weight lifted off of my shoulder because I finally got the truth out.
The hearing lasted 5 days.
We cannot say hi to him because he cannot turn around. Only thing, you know, I can just say smile to him, you know, so.
In court, a shackled Adnan wrote, "I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to present new evidence before the court. The events of the past 16 months have filled me with a great sense of hope, and I intend to keep fighting to prove my innocence." Then, 17 years later, the now 35-year-old would learn his fate.
The Baltimore County man made famous by the podcast Serial is no longer a convicted murderer. A judge has granted Adnan Syed a new trial.
The conviction is erased. It's gone. He's not, as of this day, he's not convicted anymore.
We've been fighting for almost 20 years, and, you know, this is the first time, we've actually, heard really, really good news.
Adnan's attorneys are now working on getting him released on bail pending a new trial. A new trial that might not happen if the prosecution has anything to say about it.
This is a battle that, based on the record, should not result in a new trial.
We know that the state's not going to give up, and we'll be ready.
So the question remains, is Adnan guilty or innocent?
I think he's 100% innocent.
I'm 100% convinced that he is not involved in her death.
What do you think?
I can honestly say I have no idea. I wish I knew. I wish I could be that one person that could say he's innocent. But even I can't say that.
Asia McClain has written a book about her experience called Confessions of a Serial Alibi. And at the end of the day, she says she wouldn't change a thing.
Do I wish that things would have turned out a different way? And of course there are positives, but there are also negatives. This case is not just about Adnan. There are a lot of people who actually have been wrongfully convicted. And I think that this case getting the attention that it has shed light on a lot of corruption. And I think that there has to be some positive that comes out of where we are now.
We will, of course, follow this case as it progresses through the courts and bring you the very latest here on the show and at CrimeWatchDaily.com. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think Adnan Syed is guilty, or do you think he deserves that new trial? Sound off on our Facebook page.